Welcome to Surrender School.
All right, the mission statement for Surrender School is, at Surrender School, we recover. Our mission is to share 12-step and other supportive recovery solutions with those who want a healthy relationship with food. We are not an official 12-step meeting, but we do adhere to the spirit of the traditions because all of us come from 12-step programs, so many, many years. As a matter of fact, if you took the entire board, it's hundreds of years of 12-step experience. Okay. I'm skipping all the upfront stuff because we have a tight schedule today. So if everybody will just take a moment to feel your breath going in and out, you might take a couple of deep breaths and feel your feet on the floor. Be 100% present. And let's say this together. God, help me to set aside everything I think I know to leave space for what I have yet to learn. And over these next few weeks, actually, including the last couple of weeks, we are learning about ourselves. All right. The goal of this is to, I don't know if you can see that, but I'm going to move it. I think there we go. The goal of this course is a personal journey. Our focus is to help understand the relationship between your false self and your true self and treat yourself with unrelenting compassion because you are human. All right. Inquiry means questioning, which we've done through this entire, all of the sessions that we've done. And the reason that we're doing that is because we will recognize, this is our goal, to recognize patterns as patterns and projections as projections. In other words, the stories that we tell ourselves, we recognize that those are stories we're telling ourselves. And the reason that we do that is because it allows us, or it allows our greater power to dissipate those so that we can show up as our true self instead of our ego structure being the one, our personality being what shows up in our lives. And it does make our lives easier, and it does make our lives more joyful and happy. Okay. Once again, what I want to talk about is when you're sharing with your kind observer, all we do is show up as love and do the best we can. That's all we do. And I know that you have not gotten a lot of guidance, but I am purposely not putting in guidance because I don't want, I'm very structured. I'm an instructor, so I'm very structured, but I don't want your shares to be structured. I want you to share what you need to share. I want the listener to listen. The kind observer, once again, is kind, of a benevolent nature, and they observe and report, not participate. It is not your job to give advice. It is not, all you're doing is listening for words that are repeated or concepts that are repeated so that you can help them come up with, and be loving, right? Be kind, absolutely. And at the end, say something like, maybe you want, I've seen you said this, something like this several times. Maybe you want to look at this in your step 6 and 7. Once again, this is stage 1 of the investigation. We're going to be our own Sherlock Holmes in the future. So all that's happening here is the kind observer is listening for 2 reasons. 1, because they can reflect something back to you, but mostly because you need to say it out loud. Part of the 12 steps is to admit or acknowledge to ourselves, to another human being, and to our greater power, the exact nature of our wrongs. Part of the steps is that. So if we skip over step 5 and we don't do that, we don't even talk about those things, what will happen is basically there's no way to interrupt the story. The story stays, and we don't want the story to stay. Everybody good with that? All right. So when you have finished in your breakout room, we're giving you 40 minutes total. You may not need all 40 minutes. Come on back. I'm going to be covering stuff during this time, which is different than we do most weeks. Okay. And then next week, I'm going to cover the same thing because I can almost guarantee you're not listening this week. Almost for sure. If you're sharing this week, you're almost for sure not listening. Okay. And it doesn't hurt for people to hear it twice because distraction is a real thing. And I think everybody's a little bit distracted today, and maybe we'll be distracted next week as well. I'm going to stop sharing for right now, and let's open this up for that. I think that's great. Okay, Jennifer, go ahead.
Yes, hi. Could you just describe, I think I read somewhere that you all posted in WhatsApp the instructions. Can you just illuminate what the person who is sharing is expected to share about?
Okay,
I
So the
understand
person,
all of the kind of observer
okay,
part.
good. Okay, yeah, thank you for asking for that. Okay, so basically, I'll talk about what generally happens in a fifth step. And this may not be your experience, but it's been mine on both sides, but giving it and taking it. So generally what happens is step 4 is this big long process. Step 5 ends up being dumping all the first 2 columns on this poor person who has to listen to me. That's usually what happens, right? So I'm going on and on about all the people that done me wrong in my life is basically what, especially on the resentment thing. And then the fear is everything I've ever feared. And then, although I never did a harms, we did basically a connection kind of thing, the sexual thing. Okay, so with that in mind, how this is different is I don't want you to focus, if at all possible. If you have to focus on the first 2 columns, okay, there's no harm in that. It means, but it's a wake-up call for you to know that you're stuck a bit in your story, because the story will never change if you continue telling that story. So what we're really trying to do is get to the point where you can say, let's say that your father was abusive. Mine wasn't, but let's say yours is. Instead of saying my father was abusive and then listing 25 times that you remember he was abusive, right? Which is what a therapist would have you do. That isn't what I want you to do. I want you to say, my father was abusive. We will stipulate, yep, your father was abusive because you think that it was, whether it's true or not is beside the point. That's your belief. So, okay, you would say that my father was abusive. And then I want you to focus on how does that make you feel, did or does? And how do those feelings make you act? Because especially when we get to 6, because if you think about it, the defenses, those defects of character that show up in our life, those defenses that show up in our life are actions that we are taking against the world. And we are trying to figure out what is the feeling I have that's causing that, because the people that did it did not cause it. It's the feelings you're carrying with you that cause it. And you have actions over those feelings. That's really where we'd like to get. If you don't get there, that's fine. If all you do is share columns 1 and 2, you'll be, when you're talking, your kind observer is going to hear words about what you're saying. So it doesn't, so the sharing part of it can be what you've always done for step 5. If you want it to be, it can be. I think you'll drive it further, faster. I guess I'm a further, faster girl, right? So you'll drive it further, faster if you can talk about, and the kind observer may say, and how did that make you feel? Right? Because that's really what we want to know is how did it make you feel? And what did those feelings cause you to do? Right? That's getting to the crux of the issue. And that's the beginning of the Sherlock. Let me think about that. How did I act? Because very often we come into programs saying the person in columns 1 and 2 that made me do something. And that just isn't the way it works. It's those people made you feel something and your feelings made you do something. That is the piece usually that's missing, right? Okay, did that answer your question, Jennifer?
Yep. Thank you. Because
Okay.
I thought I had heard last week or 2 weeks ago that we were charged with telling a story about, not story, I know you wouldn't say story, but like a example, and just talk and talk, and then the person picks out. So I
Oh
misheard that.
no, what you're talking about, yeah, mostly are the feelings. And yeah, I mean, every one of these rooms is going to be completely different, I can guarantee you. And I really want it to be, because some of what I want when we come back, because we're going to share on this, right? Probably next week. I really want people to say, I did stay in columns 1 and 2, but my kind observer still was able to hear the stuff. It's really funny. I think she is here, but I did work with someone this past weekend. And when they were all done, I'm like, I don't think you're a 2. And I was like, I'm not supposed to say this or do this. I just did. And all the stuff you said, you were a 6. So,
Mm.
but you're not supposed to do that. And I wasn't supposed to do that. So anyway, I did it wrong. But there is no wrong. The only wrong, if there's a wrong, is doing it, not doing it. So I think we're good. All right. So Linda, to you.
Okay, so the question I had is very logistical. So the first time we go into the breakout rooms, is it just one person sharing and one person being a kind observer? And then the second time we switch, is that what happens? Or
No, the second time. So you'll see on yours, I don't think you're opposite. So what will
okay.
happen in the pink or
Mhm.
salmon colored is who is sharing, and in the green is who is listening. And then right? And I think, Linda, I have you listening like almost every time.
Perfect,
Okay. I think I do have you sharing once, but yeah, you're listening a lot.
perfect.
Thank you. Okay. And then Lori, if you're going to tell me you're ready, I'm going to. Okay, good. Teresa, if you have a question real quick.
Yeah, just a quick question, because I could like start all over. So that when say I'm speaking, I'm trying to keep it on I, not like my family made me feel or this. So I like mostly state like the role, like my role that, you know, I'm trying to narrow it down, not to go into a big, complain about my family or this one or that one. So I'm
Well,
just
I'll
trying
tell
to,
you what, this is the way I feel about it. If what you're talking about, complaining about your family, is staying in columns 1 and 2, and there's no harm there, because the stories that you're going to tell are going to have lots of words for your person to jot down, right? You know what I'm saying? So just realize, and this is a bit of a spoiler alert, at some point in time, what's going to happen with you is you are going to realize is their actions are not what caused you to do whatever it is you do. What has caused it is the way their actions made you feel. And feelings, once again, are different than actions. Feelings, you cannot control feelings. They happen. Our job is to figure out, how do I get on top of the bridge so I can watch the feelings float past and they don't trigger all this. I don't think people trigger us. Our feelings trigger us, right? And so I want to figure out what was I feeling, and how did that make me act? Because usually the actions, that's what I don't want. The feelings happen. That's what happens, right? And that's certainly without our permission. But I don't want the actions to be without my permission. I want to be able to have that space, right? That pause that Bill W. talks about, where I can make the decision. Yes, I felt this, but I'm not going to act this way anymore. It is making my life miserable, right? And I'll talk later on, probably later on next week, about how the passion and the basic desire and basic fear and all those come together, because that is absolutely what is causing all of this, is the way we're wired. So I will talk about that later, because I don't want to add it now, because there's enough going on. So thank you, Teresa. Joe, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry, Cher. I think I asked you the same last week. It's me being all practical and perfectionist, but the harms, resentments, fears. Do I do one of each and see where I get to with that?
So 2 different ways that I look at it. Whatever is
Yeah.
most on your mind, or disturbs you the most, or haunts you the most, or whatever, that's one choice. The other is
Yeah.
whatever is easiest. Those seem opposite, but they're not. So there'll be some that
Yeah.
are just easy for you to share, and because you kind of already pulled them apart, and you look at them and you can share them, because the goal, when all is said and done, is for you personally to come up with something that you can work on in 6 and 7. And most of us have a pretty good idea. We might be hiding it from ourselves. We've got a pretty good idea what it is that's causing causing my problems in my life. We've got a pretty good idea of that, because most of us have been through 12 steps, many times. And if not, we still come into this room pretty much understanding what's got us, right? Basically what that action is. So you can share one of each. You can stay in the resentments. You can jump right to fears. 6s almost automatically, without even thinking, will go right to fear. They just will. And that's fine. It doesn't matter. You can even pick the stuff that's easiest for you to share, whatever you feel comfortable doing. You can share for 5 minutes and come back to the room. None of that matters. I will pull you back. We will pull you back at 40 minutes, right? Some people will talk nonstop about what a train wreck their family was for 40 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what I don't want to do, because that's what I spent my whole life doing. That's why I'm trying to figure out. That's why I figure out what I need to do to make some progress.
So, all right. So your kind observer would probably, if you got in the middle of that, because we don't even recognize we're doing it, your kind observer would say, how did that make you feel? And then you got to go feel. Ooh, feel. Okay. Right. And does that make sense? Okay. So,
yeah.
And once again, if you're noticing, there is no way to do this wrong.
Yeah.
Right. It'll work out the way it's supposed to work out. That's just part of the deal. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, Vera, I see your hand is up. Thank you, Joe.
Thanks.
Yeah. So one question. So today, in this next session, we are actually going to be sharing with just one person.
Everybody is in pairs, but not everyone is sharing at the same time, because some are listening. And so there's a session A and session B today. So session A will goes 40 minutes. And then session B, almost right after that, will start, and it goes 40 minutes. And then you guys come back here and we'll kind of wrap it up and ask questions and make comments. And everyone is going to say, that was magical. I'm kidding. That's Cheryl's unrealistic wish, right?
Okay. And just a second quick question. You said that actually our feelings is what will trigger the actions, obviously. And that the passions and the fears and all the rest of the type work at the feeling. Is it at the feeling or the beliefs, like the story?
All of it kind of works together. I am going to cover the different, again, because we've been in the 12 steps, and pretty much, other than it's the fact that it's by type, we haven't talked much about the Enneagram. So what I'm going to do in the weeks that follow is I'm going to bring the Enneagram back in, and everyone will see, oh, that is according to my type, because I haven't been talking about that because there's just so much in 4 and 5 for us to do, right? So I'll bring that back, but that won't be probably for a couple weeks, I would guess, is when is when we'll do that. And we didn't record, it was inadvertent, but we didn't record last time. So that's why all the instructions that I covered, which were extremely random, I will say, about as random as it is right now. So, but there wasn't.
They were not. I just got disconnected very often last weekend. So.
Oh, okay. No worries, but you're good to go. So however, okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Yeah, this is just I think a quick question too. So it's 40 minutes for the A, and then we'll do 40 minutes for the second session. So it's really up to us, my partner and I, to decide how the 40 minutes get spent, right? Like,
yep.
I could be if I were sharing, I'm sharing, and then I want to obviously, like, is there a recommendation? Give like space for, I don't know, 5 minutes or more?
Yeah.
I don't know.
The way that I did it is just a couple minutes up front, just to level set for everybody knows what we're doing. And then the other person shared, and then for about 20 minutes or so. And so mine wasn't a full 40 minutes, for 20, 25 minutes. And then at the end, it's like, okay, what were the words that I heard, and what are the things you may want to do? And then I think it's important for the sharer then to come back and say, that does make sense, or go, ooh, I'm not like that at all. That doesn't make sense at all. And once again, it doesn't mean that the words that come back are correct. It just means you said them a lot, right? And maybe they mean something. And then also we have multicultural here too. And so words are going to mean something different, slightly different, because of the culture that you're in. So this is exciting to me. I know, but everybody else is like, oh my God. But
yeah, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go.
Okay, I am going to share my screen again. So let me go here and, all right. So here is and session A is what we're looking at, all the way here to the left. Tamra is with Becca. Eileen, I think you say it that way, but it's with an A, is with Carmen. Anne is with Fiona. Jim is with Jasmine. Wendy is with Jennifer. And once again, the pink shares, the green is the observer. Okay, Wendy is with Jennifer. Richard is with Kathy M. Lisa H is with Kim B. Michelle S is with Lauren. Celia is with Linda T. Janice is with Pat T. Ann G is with Binti. Cindy B is with Coach Ty. Joe M is with Lee W. Teresa Z is with Dave B. And Emma is with Ambra. All right, so Lori has those set up. She's going to send you into your rooms. Everybody else is here for this session, and we're going to talk about instincts. Hit it, baby.
Okay, here we go. If you end up I'll be watching the room. So if you somehow end up there alone, I'll be dealing with that. So don't worry about it.
Thank you, Lori.
Have a good time.
All right, identify your dominant energy. And once again, there are 3 instincts. There's the sexual instinct, which basically has to do with procreation. It has to do with connection one-on-one with people. There is the self-preservation instinct, which has to do with survival. And then there's the social instinct that has to do with connection and safety. So Michael Naylor went into detail about these, and I'm taking a slightly different perspective from other literature. But I think the understanding how those affect our type is what I'm going to cover. Okay, so the self-preservation instinct is a withdrawing energy. So I put that shy little boy up there, okay? The social is a connecting energy. And the sexual, or one-to-one, is an approaching energy. It pushes into the world. The self-preservation withdraws from the world. And the social is kind of a connecting kind of energy. Now, the reason this matters, we have all three energies. We have all three instincts because we're born with them. We have them all. One is dominant, especially during stress. It will jump up and be dominant. And one is kind of hidden from us. So to put this in perspective, I am an 8 sexual. I have very approaching energy. 8s push into the world. I am a sexual 8, push again into the world. I'm probably the most pushy person you've ever met in your entire life. So, and I accept that about myself. It is that. But part of my growth is that because what we want to do is be able to balance those energies so we can live comfortably in the world. I am very low on the social energy. I finally, I'm old enough to have known this probably 80 years, but I don't. And that is that I am really bad team player. I'm a horrible team player. I'm just absolutely dreadful. I'm really good in charge, but I'm not a good team player. So the social energy stuff is in my blind spot quite a bit. If I go to a party, I am hooked up with one person and I'm talking to them and digging into their past and finding out about their history and want to know about their family, and the party's going on and everybody's laughing, and I don't even get that at all because I want to hook one-on-one with one person. That's the way I've always approached the world. Okay. I even view, when I teach, I view the audience as one entity, right? Which might seem social, but it's not. Okay. Let's start with type 1. All right. So once again, I left this up here, passion and instinct. So the passion that you have and the instinct equals your subtype. Okay, so self-preservation, once again, is withdrawing, social is connecting, sexual is approaching, and then I'm going to cover each of the individual pieces here. Okay, so the first is I'm going to move this out of the way because it's irritating me, and I don't like to be irritated. Okay. All right. So the self-pres is the first type, and they are subtitled worry. And this is, once again, a type 1 self-preservation. Their anxiety comes from suppressed anger. They can be self-righteous. They strive for perfections, and sometimes they can make themselves sick. So this is a self-preservation person, okay? And this is the self-preservation 1. The social 1 is called non-adaptability. Okay, this person, this 1, walks the walk. They appear cooler than the others of this type. They have a strong sense of what is right and will often say it's the right thing to do. Okay, they express exasperation, so you can see when they are exasperated. They have one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake of anger. So they will go from cool to anger to that is a 1 who is a social. The sexual, the blue box around the outside, this is the counter type. So every one of these will have 2 that are like kind of go right along with it, but then there's a counter type that causes a bit of conflict within themselves, I guess is the best way to say it, I suppose. But it's basically counter to the other 2, and sometimes it makes them completely different. But the sexual 1 is called zeal. And they have both feet on the gas of anger. So they can be very angry and express it. Their energy burns hot and intense, and they freely give advice. This is the one of all the types. 2s can give advice too, but sexual 1s really like to give advice to people. Okay, so that's the 1 and the 3 thing. And now I'm going to talk just a little bit about something that you might do. If you're a 1 and you are a self-pres, social, or sexual, I'm just going to talk about one way to adapt in the world, okay? So first of all, for the self-pres type 1, change your definition of perfect, because they strive for perfection, and you're probably never going to defeat that striving for perfection. So just change your definition of what is perfect. An example that somebody gave me one time, and I just love this. As a matter of fact, it was in one of the books I read. And it said this woman always wanted everything to be perfect when she served dinner. And she's in the kitchen working, trying to make sure everything's hot at the same time and all this stuff. And she changed her definition of perfection to be perfection is sitting at the table with her family for the entire meal. So it ended up being a buffet instead of, right? It ended up, she just changed what made it perfect. And I thought that was great. Okay, for the social, become curious, right? So instead of this is the right way, become curious as to why are people doing it the way that they're doing it. That's one of the ideas. And then for the sexual, to to realize that your opinion, to be able to say to yourself, my opinion is nobody's business, even mine. My opinion doesn't matter. To have no opinion, that'll keep you from giving advice. Okay, we're going to move on to type 2. And here's my little dog Mayhem. Okay, and once again, they're the intuitive healer. The self-pres 2 is called privilege. They are charming and disarming and open. They are ambivalent about receiving and ambivalent about giving. Notice the blue box around this, because most 2s are not ambivalent at all about giving. They give, right? But this is they're ambivalent about giving also. And they are deeply hurt when others fail to meet their needs, even if they've never stated them. Okay, that is the self-pres 2. Okay, the type 2 social is called ambition, and they harness their help, I want to help, those desires to help for greater good. They have a need for approval. They want to feel indispensable, and they expect adulation from other people when they feel indispensable. They don't present as vulnerable at all, and they can step on the toes of other people very easily due to their feeling of self-importance. The sexual 2 is called aggressive seductive. They are gregarious and magnetic. They are high energy and intense. They're constantly on, and when they aren't that, when they are low energy because they're sick or they can become depressed. They can become easily depressed because they're so used to being on and going and doing and all that. And then when they can't, because whatever reason they're low energy, it ends up in depression. Okay, for that self-pres, set boundaries and communicate your needs. I mean, just say that out loud. Actually tell them what it is that you want and set some boundaries. Okay, for the social, check your motives. Are you buying love? And for the sexual, are you having a down day? Tell your friends you're having a down day and do something that feeds your soul. So those are ways to kind of heal yourself a bit. Okay, for the type 3, once again, self-preservation. Because of the blue box, the self-preservation is the counter for the 3. They want recognition, but they want to appear modest. They overachieve to prove that they deserve a good reputation. Their gift is they do class and quality work. They're very, very good and detail-oriented, and they're good at their work. They are impatient. They will shut down their feelings, and they do not acknowledge that what they do for show. Okay, for the social, they're called prestige. They are well-spoken and put together. They are more overt in seeking recognition, so they don't mind that people know they want to seek recognition. They have grace under pressure. They prefer to be a human doing rather than a human being, and they may lose track of their feelings. And then the sexual is called charisma, and they support others to succeed. They are emotional, but afraid of emotions, and they may not know who they are. They may even say those words. I don't even know who I am. Okay, the self-pres, feel your feelings. You can handle those. So if you are a self-preservation 3, feel your feelings. You can handle them. For the social 2, begin a meditation practice that may help you become a human being instead of a human doing. And then for the sexual, the bit of advice is, how do you, not others, see you? So some of it is just journaling on how do you see yourself. It's really interesting because 3s are, of all the types, of all 9 types, they're the only one, how do I say this? All 9 types everywhere in the world, 8s look like 8s, regardless of the society they're in, right? 2s look like 2s. They're the give. 1s are very, anyway, they look like themselves. 3s adapt to the environment. So a 3 in Ethiopia looks very different and acts very different than a 3 in the United States. A 3 in England or a 3 in Australia looks very different than a 3 in France. And they're the only type that adapts to their actual culture. They really adapt to the culture rather than everybody fits into the culture, but 3s truly look different because they adapt very much to their culture. Okay, here's the 4. And once again, they are the creative alchemist, and the 4 has very distinct subtypes, very distinct. Most of them aren't, the subtype, because once again, as we balance those, we bring the one that's hidden forward, and we basically take the dominant down and balance those out. But the 4s have very distinct subtypes. Okay, so once again, the blue box around the outside says that this is the counter type. So for the 4, okay, Tenacious, it's called tenacity. They are tenacious in the face of adversity. They can throw themselves into risky behavior. They can glamorize the dark side of things. So very often some of the kids that were goth and turned goth, basically were self-pres 4s, okay? And then no one came to save them as children. They feel very strongly that they needed to be saved as children and nobody came to save them. For the social 4, they're called inadequacy. They're dramatic and they have a flair for artistic things. They can be frustrating and mystifying to their family. They really are unique. They're a really, really unique subset. They embrace suffering to connect with themselves. So they may seem like they suffer needlessly. Sometimes people will say that, but they suffer to connect with themselves. It really does help them connect with self. And that may isolate them from other people who don't live their lives like that. Okay. And then the sexual is called competition, and they have a direct and honest approach to life. Envy becomes superiority. So they will envy someone else, but it's almost like sour grapes. They use the superiority. And then they will complain if they are hurt, and their anger is dominant rather than sadness. For self-present social, their sadness or melancholy is kind of what's dominant for them. For the sexual 4, they're probably sexual 4s, sexual 6s, and sexual 8s are the angriest of the group. I mean, they can be very, very angry. So 4s can show up as angry. Okay. So for the self-pres, no mask, you are all that in a bag of chips. So basically embrace that and know that. All right. For the social, do something that makes you grateful. It's really hard to be melancholy and grateful. Those two things don't go together. So try that. And then for the sexual, use the 1 arrow to go to serene. Basically, can you take that to serene instead of angry? All right. For the 5, can somebody say something back to me? Is this making sense to you, or is everybody inside your own heads?
No, it's
Yes, it
making sense.
is.
Makes sense.
Okay,
Cher,
good.
I'm,
Go ahead.
it's Sarah. Can
Hi,
you
Sarah.
be in between some of these?
Yeah, let me pull out of this right now and let's talk for a second about this. Okay, the answer is yes. As a matter of fact, if you've worked the steps and you're in program, you are many of these. We are all 3. One will be dominant under stress, and one will be hit. Like when we first come to program, there's one that is dominant, is running everything, and there's one that's completely hidden, and we live kind of in the middle. Right? We live in one of them, but one of them is, and we don't live in our dominant one. We live in the one that's right in the middle, right? So I'll use myself as an example. So I live in the middle, which is self-pres, right? My house is perfect. I set the table with beautiful dishes. I used to have like 16 sets. I've given a bunch of them away that I had for every holiday in the world. I had all this stuff, right? So anyway, the idea, and so I live kind of there, but when when something happens that I have to deal with, that I have a sexual instinct, a one-on-one instinct, like parties. I don't like parties, but if I go to parties, that really jumps up. The social instinct for me is pretty much hidden, and I never knew it at all. I just like, what? I don't even understand that. I don't like parties. I don't like to, and then it's like, so the goal is to even them out. So to take that dominance so that it isn't quite as dominant and bring that, try to be more, in my case, try to be more sociable. The ones that if you are all 3 and you kind of equally, yeah, I can be all of those things, that means you probably are balanced, right? So with the instincts, and Michael Naylor, when he covers his stuff, well worth watching if you haven't had a chance to do the first Fridays and see those, he talks about the 3 instincts and the zones within the instincts. And there's 3 zones within each of the instincts. So sexual instinct, I'll talk about self-pres. That's probably that's the first one he did. So self-pres has 3. The first one is they're the people that work out all the time. They've got, they eat all the right. They do all that shit that I don't do, right? They do all that. Okay, that's the first zone. The second zone is finances. They have all their finances in place, and I don't do that either. The third one is domesticity. I do that, right? I do that. And think about self-pres as my middle one. So it's like I do one zone in there, which is probably, and I do that well. Okay, and the other 2, I wish I did, but I don't. Does that make sense? So it's worth listening to Michael Naylor when he talks about those different zones, because what will happen, and once again, the instincts by themselves is what he covered. But he doesn't talk about the type in the instinct. So what I'm bringing up is basically, okay, now let's put that instinct against your type and see what happens. But what will happen, right? And I know you're a 2, Sarah. So, right.
Yeah.
So what happens is if you have it, you kind of all 3 are there, it probably means that you're balanced.
Oh, okay.
That was a really
Yeah.
long answer to a short question. But
No, I was kind of like, I relate to like, cause I'm a 2 and I feel kind of like right now I'm in between the ambition and the aggressive seduction. I mean, I'm not so much aggressive seduction as I used to be when I was younger, but I definitely relate more to those than to the self-pres 2. Because I'm not a very ambivalent person just in general. And so I find that, but I understand that I have probably been that. So that anyway, you answered my question. So, and
okay.
I want to make sure sexual doesn't necessarily mean like sex, right? Or like, or does it?
No, it doesn't. It means
Okay.
it actually means you connect 1-to-1.
Okay.
It's 1-to-1. And I believe that because they say SPSOSX, I think that's why they call it sexual. It really has
Okay.
nothing to do with sex. It has to do with the fact that a person that connects 1-to-1. Some people feel very uncomfortable 1-to-1. They don't do that. They basically, they
Okay.
go to a party and they're talking to all the different people and they're doing all that. That is like hell to me. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. Right?
Yeah.
Right. But I'll tell you what, I hook in it with one person and I'm finding all kinds of stuff about them. We become like best friends during a 30-minute party, right?
Yeah.
That is the sexual instinct. That is that one connection. Right. And so, and when I was younger, I was exactly that. Made me a really good salesperson because they all became my friends while I was trying to sell them. So anyway, does that make sense?
Yes. Thanks, Cher.
Thank
Cher,
you. Uh-huh.
this is Lori real quick. I just want to interrupt and ask Vera if she can look at the chat. I sent her a message. So, thank you. That's it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right, Shirley, to you. And I hope nobody minds. I really wanted this to just be kind of random today because we'll cover all the stuff between today and so an interruption is perfect. This is what I wanted. Shirley, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to understand because I'm curious about the 4. You said for the self-pres, the recommendation for growth is you are a bag of chips and all that.
You are all that in a bag of chips.
Yeah, what does that mean?
You are great. You are wonderful, just as you are. That's
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, there must be a Midwestern thing. Does everybody know that? You're all that in
Yeah.
a bag of chips.
Of course, yeah.
I've never heard that before. Anyway,
I think it's a
little bit
Midwestern thing.
because I know.
I probably shouldn't talk about a bag of chips
so
because
do you mean like you are wonderful, stay the way you are?
it doesn't necessarily mean stay the way you are, but it means that you're great just the way you are.
Okay.
You're great. Yeah. I never believe in staying the way you are because that isn't the way life works. So
Right.
you couldn't stay the way you are if you wanted to. So
Right.
okay, thank you,
That's
Shirley.
true.
Francine, go ahead.
Hi, Cher. I recall there being a test for instinct. Is there? I don't think I ever
Yes, yes.
took
At
it.
Enneagram Institute, there's the main test, the READY test, the RETTI, $20, 25, something like that. And then there's a second test, and it's the instincts test. And once again, what it tells you is the stacking of your instincts. So if it's it's interesting to me because I'm like, I don't know, am I self-pres or sexual? But I did when I took it, sexual was the top. And I used to think dominant was what we wanted to be. But then I was listening to Michael Naylor, and it's like, no, you live in the middle one. But what happens under stress is the dominant is the one that jumps up. Because think about it, our ego structure is tied to that too, very tied to the instincts, because it's meant to protect us, right? So what will happen is that will jump up. That's why if you are a 9, if you are a self-pres 9, you have 2 things making you want to withdraw, right? And I don't know that you are self-pres, but when there's a self-pres 9, because the self-pres wants to withdraw, the 9 wants to hide out, right? So if you look at the opposite ends of this continuum that is human beings, somebody like me that pushes into the world and has sexual as my dominant instinct that pushes into the world is exactly the opposite of the 9 self-pres, right? So you have not only your type, but you also have those instincts that are playing all the time as well. And then you have the level of health that also says as you grow, right? And the instincts kind of come into play the use of the instincts come into play, because that is almost, we never can change our type, but we can change our use of the instincts. So when they become more balanced, that's when we can become freer, because the instincts aren't taking over, if that makes sense. But yes, the test is worth it, I think. But the test is more, okay, so the ready test tells you how you're wired, pretty much. The instincts tell you, if you answer it currently, like how you are currently, it will tell you how those rank currently. When I took it years and years ago, the sexual was super high and the other two were very low. Now they're all right. Like I've got 53, 51, 48. I mean, they're all like right together, because, and some of it is because I recognize it. I see what's going on here. And then it's once you see it, then there's something that your greater power can do something about it. If you never see it, then there's no way that we, until we've held it, we can't let go of it, right? So, okay. Thank you, Francis. Deborah, go ahead.
Have you ever thought about like arrows? Because I was noticing with the 1 and 2, which are my arrows, being a 4, that I relate a lot to the instincts there, like a real lot. And I think it's the same instincts that I really.
Yeah, I haven't thought about that. That's part. I mean, Michael Naylor, because he's been doing this for 40 years or whatever. I think he probably has thought about it, but I have not. I haven't thought about that. It probably, I would guess. I mean, our goal is to be. If there were ever a way to do it, we want to be all of them equally, right? We're all types. We're all, it never happens, but that's kind of what we're driving toward. Maybe if I live to be 127 years old and I continue to work, neither of which is going to happen. So whatever. But yeah, so I hear what you're saying, but I had never thought about that, Deborah. Thank you for asking that, though. Vera, to you.
Well, two things. First, I've been working a lot on the self-preservation after hearing Michael, because I realized that it was important to look at it from a structure perspective. And the more I work at it, the less sexual I become, because one-on-one. And I've come to the experience of actually not being interested in having these intense conversations with people one-on-one. They started scaring me, sort of like, this is like, it's too much, So that's cool. And then I had never heard that we live in that middle instinct, and it makes perfect sense actually. I really didn't know what was the middle and the blind spot, because I think that I came in with 2 blind spots. It was sort of like either it was sexual or it was nothing, So it's cool. It's really, really nice. The other thing is the 7 and the sexual, the 2 put together. It's like the connecting energy is it like.
How about I jump to the 7 and let me cover that, because maybe that will become clear. Okay, let me do that real quick here. If nobody objects to that, let's do that. Hold on, let me share again and see if this lets me share correctly. We good? Okay, so this is the 5. I'm not going to go through the 5. I'm just gonna go quickly to the 7. Okay, so here's the 7. They are the joyful visionary. 7s are fun. And once again, self-preservation is a withdrawing instinct, social is a connecting instinct, and sexual or one-to-one is approaching, pushing into the world. Okay, so the self-pres 7 is called the keeper of the castle. They have upbeat energy. They have a can-do spirit. They're cheerful. They can go around authority. They have no issue whatsoever about seeing a rule and saying it doesn't apply to me. No problem at all. And they can become cynical if the rules must apply to them, right? So, all right, so the social then is the one that is counter, and they're called sacrifice. They seem more grounded than the other 7s. They lend enthusiasm and vision to groups. So they're really good in a team. They may need applause, but they move on when the novelty wears off. So I've learned when I worked with 7s, that I utilized their energy really early in the process, because they lost interest relatively quickly. And they may seem like a 2, especially early on in the process, like in a project that we're doing, because they're like involved and very into all the stuff that's happening, but they may lose interest quickly. And then the sexual type is called suggestibility. They are optimistic and idealistic. The glass is more than half full. It's not even just a little full, it's more than half full. They are easily bored, and they have a serious fear of missing out. I mean, they live in seriously, they want to do everything because they have a fear of missing out. All right, so the way that I would work on that, right, is some acceptance that the rules do apply to you, especially life rules, because sevens become cynical because they've usually been able to sidestep rules throughout their life, but there's like health and that kind of stuff. Those rules, they don't get to sidestep those, and they will become cynical if they come face to face with something that they can't, a rule that they cannot get around. So that's something to look at, that life rules do apply to you. Okay, for the social, have a daily meditation practice. I say that a lot as we go through this, because that daily meditation practice kind of centers you a little bit and keeps you kind of focused. By the way, this social type that gets really involved and really enthusiastic and really into things and does whatever, they often will get the reputation of being scattered or being flaky or something like that. And that isn't true. They just lose interest because they've already solved whatever it is. And sometimes they solve it and they're not listened to, right? Because they have a reputation of being flaky, but they have great ideas and they're not listened to. So they're like, okay, fine. And they move on, right? Which then solidifies that idea that they're flaky. And that's not true at all. Some of the best people on my teams were sevens. They were just amazing people. Okay, and then the last one is use your natural curiosity to stay present. Really hard for sevens to stay present. They pitch themselves into the future. They love to plan. It's really fun to plan. It's really fun to look down. It's going to be so much fun, instead of being present. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, so Vera, did any of that resonate with you?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'll be thinking about this, meditating on this.
Okay, cool. Yeah. One of the things I want to say that I don't think I say often enough, and that is that there is no type that is better than another type. There is no type that, right? There may be types that people want to be, but it's just because there's a cost for, and in every one of us, there is a cost for what we are, right? And there's an ego structure that is in charge that we have to figure out a way, and it's through step 6 and 7, or through some kind of spiritual practice that we can basically help make that not in charge, because our true self, and the way that Ellen Berger says it, I like it. I really love it. It says, I want the best in me to run the rest of me. The best in me, which is my true self, to run that. All right. Any other sharing or anything anybody wants to talk about? Or do you want me to go back over 5, 6, and 8, and 9? Good. All right. That's what I'll do.
Over 6, 5 or 6, whichever.
I will. Let me start. Let me
What
okay,
does
there's
the 2 mean, Cher? SP2,
Oh, it means that I made a mistake, because that actually should that should be SP5 and SO5. And I noticed it too. I was hoping nobody else did, Selma.
Okay.
There, it's Shirley. Would you mind repeating for the type 4 what the sexual suggestion is?
Sure, there it is.
Are we looking at 4?
Yeah, the little
Okay.
tiger. Yep, at the
Yeah,
bottom.
okay. Thank
Use the
you.
1 arrow to go to serene. Yep. Okay. All right. So for the 5, self-pres is called castle. They're intelligent and well-spoken, reserved. They think deeply. They research great. My husband's a 5, a self-pres 5. They in private, they can say, they're very private, and they can say no easily. And no is a complete sentence for them. They can get aggressive to someone who refuses the no. I know this personally. Okay. All right. For the social, it's called totem. They focus on the topic, not the person. So they can go to a party and be talking to somebody, and they're so into the topic that they don't even remember the name of the person they talk to, right? They create a body of knowledge. Fear that life has no meaning. They're one of those. And then they quietly hold anxiety because they are a head type. So they quietly hold their anxiety. The sexual is the counter. They're called confidence. They have keen intellect and passionate zest. They are, I call them chest bumpers. Do you love me now? How about now? You love me now? How about now? The withdrawing energy fights with the approaching one-to-one energy. That's why the sexual is the counter. So the withdrawing is the 5 energy is a withdrawing energy, and the approaching energy of the sexual that kind of conflicts. All right. So for the self-pres, I put buy a gift for someone you love because my husband is this, and I showed it to him, and I'd like a gift. So anyway, that's something to think about. Anyway, all right. For the totem, just make your higher power, your greater power, bigger. Right? We talk about that, and I will talk about that as we're working in step 6, and I did talk about it in step 3 as well. And then watch for setting traps, because sometimes the 5s will basically trap people to show that they're not loyal or they're not something that they hope. So borrow the 8's fresh eyes, which is the 8's innocence, because they have an arrow to the 8. All right. For the 6, the self-pres is called warmth. They project peace, calm, unity. They're hesitant to make decisions. They follow a question with a question. Their outer calm hides an inner turmoil, and they might look like a 9. It's really interesting because a lot of people ask to work with Kim B. Kim is a 6, and she is a self-pres 6, and she projects peace and calm. People want to spend time with her, and she's a lovely woman. And so it's really interesting because I went back and looked at this, getting prepped for this, and I'm like, yeah, she has an outer calm that I know because I know her. She's a friend of mine. She hides an inner turmoil, right? And she does look like a 9. I think it's wonderful. Anyway, okay, so that's self-pres 6. The social 6 is called duty. They support trusted authority. They don't support authority unless they're trusted, but a trusted they do. They cope with fear with intolerance and rigidity. They can be extremely rigid. They can have minds made up and never change them. They live by a code of behavior that they have come up with, and they live with it, and they might look like a 1. The sexual, or 1-to-1, is the counter. It's called strength and beauty. They cover fear with intimidation. They rebel against authority, and they may look like an 8, but their motivation is fear, not control. And here's what's interesting. The 6, this is why when people come into program and they say, I'm a 2 or a 6, I'm a 9 or a 6, it's because the 6s also look like other things more than anything else. Okay, so the sexual 6 may look like an 8, but their motivation is fear rather than control. All right, so the self-pres, force yourself to envision the best future. You make the list of the best things that could happen instead of the worst things that could happen. All right, ask for inspiration and wait for it. So for the social is to ask your greater power for inspiration and then wait for that. Waiting is difficult for the 6. And then also trace your anger back to your fear, because they show up with anger. And if you can trace that back to what is the fear that's beneath that, that works. All right. I did the 7 already, so let's go to the 8. The self-pres 8 is called satisfaction. They are self-sufficient. They have a quiet strength. They don't display their emotions. They can be steamrollers, and they've enveloped loved ones in their force field. The social 8 is called solidarity. They are warm and friendly. They can look like helpers. They aggressively defend the underdog. They show care better in a group, and they protect everyone in the group. And then the sexual is called possession. They are charismatic leaders. They are passionate and emotional. They exude an aura of power, and they can push to reach a solution. I used to think I was self-pres, but I looked at that and went, quiet strength? Yeah, not me. Nope. Okay, so for the self-pres, work at expressing your vulnerability. For the social, stop and question before you make decisions. And Dave, I don't know if you're here, but I'm telling you, 8s, Pat is an 8, Jane is an 8 here, Dave is an 8, I'm an 8, and Gary, if he's still here, I'm telling you, fast decisions, we make fast decisions. They're usually good decisions, but we make fast decisions, and it takes a while for everybody else to kind of catch up. So stop and question before, at least before you announce the decision. Okay. And then for the sexual, slow down and connect with your feelings. I even ask myself, I'll say, something's up. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe I should question that. Okay. Let's do the 9. They are the gentle, I love this little sloth. They are the gentle mystic. Okay. So the self-pres 9 is called appetite. They are warm and funny and very down to earth. They substitute zoning out for lack of love. So if they feel unloved, they will zone out. They have stronger personalities than the other 9s, and they can be stubborn. The social 9 is called participation. They are sociable. They bring cohesiveness and harmony to groups. They can go along to get along. They can be wishy-washy, or at least viewed as wishy-washy. And they use workaholism, so they work lots to avoid sadness. And the sexual or one-to-one is called fusion. They are introverted, gentle souls. They have intense concentration to intimate relationships. So if they're very close to somebody, they have very good concentration on that, and they can merge and lose themselves in relationships. Okay, so for the self-pres, recognize when you're zoning out and then notice why. Just ask the question, why is this happening right now? For the socials, recognize when you're overworking, like keeping yourself super busy, and why. And then for the sexual, reaffirm that you have a need to be authentic, and you want to be authentic. Okay. Everybody I can see smiles, which means you're forgiving, which I love. So thank you for that. Anybody want to talk about their experience that was in the group one sharing? Anybody want to talk about their sharing experience or their kind observing experience? I'm really curious. Like I said, I did it and I was like, you're not a type 2. I mean, and that's completely inappropriate. It's not what we were supposed to do at all. So I'm like, oh no, what if everybody does what I did? All right, Richard, thank you for raising your hand.
You're welcome. Well, all I have to say is great. I have a great kind observer, and I hope I can live up to most of my observers' greatness when it's my turn, because that's coming up next. The other thing was in the moment, I had done all of this preparation. And then in the moment, I abandoned that and I just spoke.
Yeah.
And that worked for me.
Awesome. Yeah. And actually, and I knew because I got a lot of messages this morning, I could feel that nervousness. And throughout the week, I was feeling it. And I thought it really is just a matter of what you're up for that day, because we can only do the best we can do ever in any given day at any given time. So thank you, Richard, for that. Lauren, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Not sure I want to speak. As a 4 who, I think I shared this with my person, is that I don't feel qualified to do it. Like in some ways, like I have the antenna for it, but I don't have the processing unit for it. Like, I don't know. So whatever, it was very humbling, and it's also healing. So thanks.
You're welcome. And I want to say, when I used to travel, because I traveled the world, go to countries I'd never been before, meeting with people I'd never met before, right? And I would teach them. And it's like I had to fake it until I could make it. I had to go in, and because I'm teaching them how to confidently present, so I had to step up there and confidently present. So when you talk about, I can't even tell you the number of times I felt like an imposter, but that didn't matter. I was being paid to do a job, so I did it, right? And there's a cost for that too. So I really am so proud of everybody for just, even though, especially because everybody's like, what? Why would I? You know why? Because you stepped up, and that's awesome. I really admire that. I think it's wonderful. I know the feeling. I don't usually feel that way, but I have felt that in my lifetime. So I get it. Go ahead, Lori.
We're ready. I'm ready when you
Okay.
are.
Yay. Okay. So it's still going to be 40 minutes. It's going to make you go a little longer probably, but hang in there, everybody. All right. So those that are left means most of you, or many of you, did the first sharing. And I'm very curious about how it went. And I would love for you to share on either how you think it went.
So that's interesting. Everybody's real quiet now, huh?
Exactly.
No, I actually was not nervous at all. I've been through this process a number of times, so I'm not shy about sharing my my insufferabilias. What happened for me though was that I had a different outcome from my I had a wonderful kind observer. And I thought my problem was more of abandonment and betrayal, but actually it turns out that it's anger and regret, which
was very enlightening. It wasn't what I expected, which is good, and that's why I'm here, because I really do, and I should say this, you know, to give Cheryl the credit here, is that I really like the way that we've structured the steps in this format, because I've been through the other formats and I was limited. I wouldn't have gotten this kind of an insight from that type of a format. So
Cool.
don't be afraid, everybody. We're all human. We all fuck up. It's the way it is, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
none of us are immune to fucking up. So just might as well take a look at it, because I could never have gotten as far as I have in this process if I wasn't willing to look at where I have really fucked up.
Right.
I've really fucked up.
Yeah.
And it's a major fuck up. And it, you know, it is what it is. But what I do like is that now I've got a better starting point to where I'm going to keep working. And I do love the Enneagram. That structure has been very helpful too. So
Good.
don't be afraid to share, everybody. We're all a bunch of fuck ups here.
Excuse
Thank you, Cindy.
Can
Go
I ask
ahead.
a question?
So yeah, Cindy, thank you for that. And I think what's really interesting here is 6 and 7 are going to be unique from the perspective that we're going to show you a methodology for working on one thing at a time. Because usually what happens, right, we have all of this information that we got from 4 and 5, and what do we do with it? We jump right to 8 and 9, and we're making amends and doing all that. But 6 and 7 is where we basically are able to bring in the greater power. And if we know how to do that, I'm not saying I'm good at it, but at least it's like there is a methodology for doing that. And if we can do that, then that means that when that instinct jumps up, or when that ego structure jumps up without our permission, we have a methodology for going, whoa, okay, what happened there? And analyzing it. So that's the main reason. So yeah, even just even being able to, like you talked about the anger, and you've got that anger or regret or whatever, how do we then work with that? So thank you, Cindy, for that. Joe, to you. Let me see if I can ask you.
I
There
got
you
it.
go. You got it. Good. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, I was going to say I was assigned a really lovely kind observer, and that was I was kind of scared but kind of excited at the same time, and it was really funny. I'm very good at like manipulating it to be the way I want it to be and for everything to come up as expected, but unfortunately right at the end it came up with the one thing that I didn't want to work on, which I think is kind of the point, which is that I'm either a complete perfectionist or I'm a complete, you know, all life is shit. There's no in between in any area of my life. It helps in my work life because I do finances for a charity, so they have to be, you know, it's very black and white, but everything else is just, there's no gray. I've been told that all my life, and it's just one thing that I've always said, I'll never be able to change that. That's just the way I am. And it's like, but actually it underpins so much of everything, because everything's either brilliant or a disaster, which is a very catastrophic way to live, if you know what I mean. It's just up, down, up, down, up, down. So it actually underpins everything. So I'm a bit annoyed that that's come up, because that's going to be the hardest thing to work on. But that's why I know now that that is what I have to work on. So it's been really brilliant, and it's the first time I've done the steps. And I can't believe I can actually talk now in these meetings, because I was absolutely petrified when I joined in December or whatever. So, you know, I feel like I've come a long way. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I think, and it is really interesting, because it almost, we have blind spots, but there's something in us that, well, at the very least, we come knowing there's something that, and I'm going to cover this probably 2 weeks from now, because each of the types have a passion, each have a basic fear, each have a basic desire, right? And each have an underlying emotion, and all of those play into the things that we throw into our blind spot. And we don't even know we're doing that. So anyway, but my point is, all of these things will come together. So hang in there patiently with me when we're working 6 and 7. we're going to work on those specific things, but it's not like one and done, we're finished, yay. No, it's like, this is how you're going to work on it. This is how you're going to recognize it, because it's in your blind spot. Anyway, what I was saying is, I didn't realize that because mine is control. That's one of the big things. My basic fear is being controlled. My basic desire is to be in control. And I was just like going along, and then all this stuff happened. And then suddenly I'm like regimented, getting things in good. It's like, stop, just stop. What are you spending all that energy for this? You're not in control. So anyway, it happens. And Pat, you're also an 8, so go ahead.
I am. My kind observer is actually a very good friend of mine I've known for years, which when I shared with her, I shared a resentment I had, and it was a situation that I felt betrayed, which is terrible feeling. But what I really found out is I shared my part, which is important to do, and I didn't feel I allowed myself to be vulnerable with someone that I know very well about my part, and I felt safe. And because the last thing, again, I don't want to have happen is be betrayed. So it was a good experience. And when I went through this whole process, the resentment I understood, but then I was able to understand more of my part in how I responded to the betrayal, which
Awesome.
is usually a little confrontational.
Just a bit. Awesome. So here's something that's interesting. Each of the types has a message that we did not hear in childhood, that we needed, that we didn't hear. It doesn't mean it wasn't said, but we didn't hear it. And for the 8, it is, you will not be betrayed. Is that astounding, Pat? Isn't that? Yeah, I'm just like, because I have so many stories about that it's like, oh my God, that I did need to hear that. So, and each type has a different message that they did not get as children that they needed.
Oh, no, I'm glad you said that. I mean, our parents were very doting and take care of us. We never felt like anything could happen to us. And I felt very, when I went into the world, naive. And I never thought anyone would ever hurt me or do anything vulnerable, or, so super vulnerable, very trusting. And the world's not that way sometimes.
Absolutely. Thank you, Pat.
Yeah.
Sheila, to you. Thanks, Pat. Sheila, to you, maybe.
Yes, thank you. I was just going to ask, being a 7, it's like the happy sign, but it's very traumatic because people get like pretty angry, like when you're the happy one, like at work and stuff, and I noticed that working around negative people, like it's torture for me. I can't, the people that never say thank you, and every time they talk, they're just complaining or like micromanaging you, or just, oh my God, they're just like this negative force. So I just wondered, as a 7, what can I work on? Because I have to accept that there's all types of personalities, right? So I even screenshotted some of yours so that I could understand the other people, and then help me. So besides like meditating and letting it go, how can I, in the moment, help me?
Well, you could basically engage your 8 wing and tell him to be quiet. I'm kidding. That was a joke, kind of, sort of. I actually have told people I'm not listening to you right now. I mean, and with even the hand gesture, I'm not listening to you right now, especially if I'm getting ready for something where I can't afford to be distracted for whatever. But 8s, I don't have advice for that, but I do think, first of all, studying more deeply the Enneagram so that you understand the other types, because some of it is, there's a difference between, and they may seem the same, there's a difference between a 4 who's feeling something very deeply and maybe a 2, you know what I mean? So all of the different types, there'll be something different. And I'm learning, and even though I'm an 8, how do I say this? I recognize people early in recovery. I recognize people that have never worked a program before. And I feel more compassionate for people that don't have a program, because working a program has made my life beautiful. I love my life. And I have to say, I was probably one of the people that you would have fled from, Sheila, before program. So, and I'm glad you didn't say that you didn't want to hear me. So I don't have an answer for you, but I'll give it some thought and see maybe when it's time for us to talk about that for like steps 8 and 9, right? To basically sit down and say, what is there a way to do this? Because they're probably, if they're talking like that, they're probably miserable, right? And is there a way for us to help them? I don't know. So thank you, Sheila, for that.
Yes, and I also thought maybe if I could try to figure out what type they are, then I could like take a look at that type. So that's what I'll try to do. I'll try to learn.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's really hard for us because what we're looking at, the way they show up in the world and the way they're wired may be different than that. As you can tell, if you look, like when I talk about the type 6s, they might look like a 2, they might look like a 9, they might look like a 1. It's like really hard by how they show up in the world, but you can at least get an idea very often. Yep. Thank you, Sheila. All right, Lee, to you.
Thanks, Cher, and just resonating with my fellow 7s there, and appreciating the laughter in this meeting today. I'm finding it quite funny, which I really like. However, just in terms of being a kind observer, I just wanted to feedback that it was a massive privilege, a huge privilege, and just that someone that hasn't met me before would come and share so openly, and really reveal those patterns. So thank you for providing that opportunity. And I feel like it's also helped me in my sponsoring, because I've taken 6 people through step 4 and 5, and sometimes it has been about the story. But by the time I get to step 4 and 5 with the sponsor, I love them already. I want to hear their story. I want to give them lots of love and hear everything about them. So I think sometimes I get stuck in the story as a sponsor. So actually just being with someone I've only just met is really helpful for me, because I just listened for the patterns. The story means nothing to me in the nicest, kindest possible way. It's not relevant. So yeah, I just felt it was really good, and it's going to help my own practice. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, because I will say, the longer that people stay in their story, columns 1 and 2 of the resentment list, right? It can't be fixed if they stay in their story. And usually what happens, because none of us are therapists, right? So then we're like, I don't know how to help them, because they just keep talking about how awful their mother was, or how awful their father was, or whatever it is. And I don't know, because they've got to get out of that and into, how did that make me feel? However you name it, how did that make me feel? And how did that make me act? Feelings, great. Stand on a bridge, watch them pass. How did it make me act? Because, and maybe it's because I'm an 8 and my actions are so, or have been when I was young, so overt. I was so in their face that it was like, it did me harm. It did them harm, right? Then the other ones are more subtle, but it still does harm, right? So yeah, thank you, Lee. And I feel that way too. I feel like I haven't sponsored in years because I'm a shit as a sponsor. So, but I doing it this way, I'm like, hey, maybe I could sponsor. I'd end up telling them what Enneagram type they are, but hey, there are worse things to do. Thank you, Lee. Ambra, to you.
Thank you. I want to share something about, I think my most defense, even if I don't share today, I listen, but I listen for like me, and it's isolation. And my question is, I have to make discernment when isolation is protection and when isolation is isolation, which I don't know, defense, etc. Because of course, if someone blame me, going withdrawal or blame me all the time as my parents or whatever, maybe isolate is protection and is good. It's not ever that it's bad isolation. It's like, my question is, okay, I have this defense. For example, right now that I have more awareness, before to close relationship, I try to share what is my feeling and needs with people. Maybe work, maybe it doesn't work. And then I can make a choice to close and not go in isolation before because they reject me, or, it's really tricky that for me.
Yeah. Tell me the Italian word for isolation. What is the Italian word?
Isolamento.
Okay.
Isolamento.
Yeah, because so when you're doing your stuff, absolutely, not when you're sharing, because we speak English, but when you are journaling and so forth, do you journal in Italian?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because because once again, anytime your brain has to do that translation, you're going to miss something in the translation. So you really want to think about in the Italian so that you can say, because it will help your discernment. It absolutely will help your discernment. When the people I used to teach presentation skills, I would have people present in their language. Their PowerPoints were English, but they presented in their language, and they would come up with like really creative, cool things because they're in their mother tongue, and you want to do that. So I really honor you for coming here where everybody speaks English and sharing with it. And I want to talk for a second about isolation. I used to think any kind of being by myself was a bad thing. And then I realized I have an arrow to the 5, and the 5 feels very comfortable being like hibernating, being alone. And now I really relish that. I love my time alone. I'm an introvert, so I gather all my energy alone and expend it into the world, and then I'm exhausted, and then I gather all my energy and expend it into the world. Whereas, and which means I need that time alone in order to gather the energy. An extrovert basically gets energy from being, but they still need time alone to process all the energy that they've gathered together. So I think everybody needs time alone for meditation, for talking to God, for just even, doing a journal or doing something like that. Does that make sense, Umbra?
Yeah, you spoke about the healthy part of isolation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's about connection with myself right now. It's not
Exactly.
about
And with your greater power too, with your higher power too. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Umbra. All right, Joe, your hand is up. Go ahead.
And I know there's all the crosstalk rules and all the rest of it, but that's been the big thing in my life is like aloneness equals unconnected, unloved, abandoned, rejected, all the negative things, being alone, all the negative things. And yeah, I choose a lot of the time to be on my own, but for some reason, when I'm on my own, I'm like, nobody wants me, nobody loves me, go into the drama of being a 4. It's quite hysterical what my brain will tell me, but yeah.
Yep. And here's what's interesting. This is what I believe. In the big book, it says, we are sure God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. I believe what comes first is free. And from that, we have days of happiness and moments of joy, right? We don't live in joy and happiness every minute. That'd be nice if that's what heaven's for, right? That's not how we live, but we can at least have days of happiness and moments of joy. And that is what makes life rich. Okay. I also want to say in here, we don't have rules on any of that stuff. The only rule is don't come naked. That's it. That's the only rule. So I may come up with others if I see bad behavior, but right now nobody's coming in naked. So we're good. Thank you, Joe. And I do think that's one of the things too, as we go through, take a look at your wings, right? So if you're a 4, you have a 3 wing and a 5 wing, which means, so if you can figure out a way to spend time by yourself without beating yourself up, right? Because this is all about self-compassion. Can I love myself as I am? Warts and all, right? Because there is no such thing as perfection. What will happen, because you have an arrow to the 1, the 4 has an arrow to the 1, there is this feeling I must be perfect. Because they have an arrow to the 2, there's feeling like I never give enough, right? So there are all these. The nice part is, if it isn't your type, so the type 4, very emotional, but if it isn't, if you don't have the passion of that type, which you don't, those are relatively easy for you to give away and ask your greater power to get rid of. This need for perfection all the time, or this need that I don't give enough, those are relatively easy because you don't have the basic fear and the basic, and that's usually what it is. You don't have the basic fear of those types. The one that's really hard to give away, the really hard, the hard one is your basic fear, right? And right, so we'll cover that here in the coming weeks again, because it's like the basic fear, at least this is what I'm finding. My basic fear is to be controlled. Everything in my life, every bad behavior ever is me not wanting to be controlled. It's everywhere. And I never recognized it in the past. I just thought everybody was like that. They're not, right? So, and then my basic desire is to be in control. Well, in this world, what? I'm not in control of anything, right? Anything. I mean, really. So, and I'm learning, and that's part of what we do. So thank you, Joe, for that. All right, Robin, to you.
First of all, let me make sure I got this correct, but a little while ago, I think it was when you were talking to Pat, I think you said each type didn't hear a message they needed to hear. Is that correct? Okay. So for the 2, I heard what it was for the 8, but do they have specific ones, or do I just intuit?
Oh, no, well, they do have specific ones.
Oh, okay.
Okay, are you ready for the message for the 2?
Sure.
And this is, once again, doesn't matter if it was said or not, we did not hear it. And
Okay.
here it is for the 2. You are wanted.
May I ask for the 4?
Yes.
Thank you.
The 4 is you are seen for who you are.
Sure.
You guys want you want the rest of them?
Yes, the
Okay,
7 too,
so-
please.
Yeah, okay, the 7 is you will be taken care of. Okay, so the 1 is you are good. Because 1s feel very defective and they live in that very often. So 1s, you are good. 2s, you are wanted. 3, you are loved for yourself. 3s feel like they have no value outside of their accomplishments. So what they didn't hear is you are loved for yourself. 4, you are seen for who you are. 5, your needs are not a problem. 6, you are safe. You are safe. 7, you will be taken care of. 8, you will not be betrayed. And 9, your presence matters. So some of the 9s actually made their mantra, my presence matters, so that they remind themselves that their presence matters. Don't these touch your heart? Don't they just, yeah. And this is from Wisdom of the Enneagram, which I'm pretty sure Dave and Kim, I don't think they're here right now, but we're trying to figure out a time, but this is one of the books we're going to do a reading room. I mean, it's a giant book, so we'll be there for 30 years, but it's okay, 30 years. Okay.
What page were those all on one page?
Oh, I will tell you. Hold on, let me find it again. They are on page 34. At the bottom of page 34.
Oh, perfect.
These are called the Lost Childhood Messages. So I'm going to tell you a quick story about betrayal. When I was in high school, I had a boyfriend. We were going to get married, all this stuff. He went away to college, found someone else. First year of college, same thing happened. Had a boyfriend. He moved away I think he was a year ahead of me. So he went to a senior, a regular college, found someone else. Right. So I'm meeting with a group of friends from high school, which we used to meet every year. And I had some old journals and I've got them out. We were talking. And I said, hey, this is my high school guy. I said, hey, when Calvin left and found someone else, did I cry? And they said, no, we thought it was really weird. Right. And what that means is I expected to be betrayed. I expected to be betrayed. It's like, what is this? Right. So it's like, where did this come from? I don't know. And when I read this, I'm like, oh my God, because that message, I will not be betrayed. It's like, I don't even know how that all comes together, but it was amazing to me that I'm like, and I've been married 44 years to a wonderful man who absolutely has never betrayed me. He's a wonderful husband. Right. And so I feel super fortunate that his name is Nick. I call him Saint Nick because he's been married to me for 44 years. So what can I say? Anyway, but yeah, so that message, and I have friends that are 2s, and that you are wanted. Oh my God, because that need to hear love, that 2s have. It's like, oh my gosh, it just breaks my heart when I hear that. Okay, any other questions or comments or anything? We're coming upon, I think I know we can't close the room, Lori, because you still have people out in the breakout rooms, but anybody else have, okay, go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, being a 6, I've for years tried to have sponsors and stay in programs, and I've been sober for 20 years and been doing my step work diligently, even the fact that I can't hang on to sponsors. I want to flush them. And it's like, they can be really nice. Some of them are not nice for me to hang around. So, but it always bothers me that I can't be like everybody else. where I want to be able to trust people, sponsors, authority figures.
Yeah.
And I
And
know that about myself. I've known it for a while from doing my step work, but it never goes away.
and you're right about that. But what's really interesting is the title, the standard title of the 6 is the loyalist, because when they find someone that they can trust, they are fiercely loyal. But it is a road, a bumpy road to find that, and some never do, right? And the main thing here is for you to just completely feel compassion for yourself, that may be your path, that there isn't a trusted authority, and maybe only your greater power becomes the only trusted authority you have.
Yeah, and like working with people that are just like fellow travelers, like, just another food addict or another,
Yeah, because, and I tell you what, even though I say I don't sponsor, I work with people, but I basically, that's what I say, we're fellow travelers, right? We're just little girls walking each other home. That's all we are. Because the second I go into authority mode, whatever that is, right, as sponsor, I feel responsible. And it's like, I'm not responsible. I'm an observer here. I'm a kind observer. That's all I am. So I have to consider fellow traveler. I have to be that. I can't be more than that or other than that. I can't. But I'm like the opposite side of you, because I just can't do that. And and because I feel like I'm not helping them enough. It's like, well, what? You do what you can. And so yeah, that's a practice for me. I mean, it is, and I have to practice it. That doesn't come automatically. So thank you, Karen.
Thanks a lot.
Maria Goretti, go ahead.
Thanks, Cher. Amazing. Taking loads of notes as usual. So some of the things really interesting for me were, I'm a 2, so I'm a heart type, but I do hide out my head a lot and intellectualize to avoid feelings and emotions. And I know the 2 dumps adrenaline, and you were saying about head types hold anxiety, and about 9 type 9s have got an inner turmoil, which I can also relate to, but I would seem, I believe, to most people to be calm and collected and together the majority of the time, because my foolish pride and ego, while my 2ness desires to be seen, what overtakes is, those isms standing in the way, so that I expect to be seen, but I'm in hiding. And I was wondering whether this all ties in also to the thing about the narrow to the 8 and about being innocent. I can be naive, not stupid, but I can be childlike, and that leads me into distortions of fantasy thinking, which has worked well for me in childhood, not always in adulthood, although it can be also creative. And but it's projections onto other people, places, and things, and ignoring the red flags. And whilst the desire to look for positives can overtake really the reality, where I go into visual thinking and flights of fancy and so forth, and this magical world. So although I believe I'm a realist, so all very distorted. That's one of my big things that I would say. I mean, is that all sort of tied into my 2ness?
Well, I think because, so some of the stuff you talked about, right? You have a wing of the 1 and the 3. You have the 4, right? You have an arrow to the 8.
Yeah.
Right? You have an arrow to the 4 and the arrow to the 8. So yeah, I think all of those, and this is, by the way, what happens, and this is how, because I usually we will incorporate the good things of the wings and arrows, but we also incorporate the other things too, right? So yay. It's really funny because my sister is a 3, and her family has always teased her about having rose-colored glasses. She sees the world the way she wants the world to be, as opposed to the way the world is. Now, this is an 8 saying this. She doesn't say that, but obviously, that's my view of her as a 3. But they always say she has rose-colored glasses, and she does not want to take those off because it helps her to cope in the world, right? And so some of that, because you're a 2, you have a 3 wing, you have a 4 arrow, you have an 8 arrow, and all of those are there. And some of it is just seeing it. The cool part is those are really easy to change compared to the ones that are tied to your basic fear, right? And those may be, you may decide when we're working on 6 and 7, those are going to be the ones you start with. Because I'm telling you, the big one that's tied to your basic fear is going to kick your ass, guaranteed, right? But once you see it, you can work on it. But we work on one thing at a time, which is different than in the past. And that's the practice that I'm going to show you in 6 and 7, is working on these things one thing at a time. Sometimes it'll really easy to basically dissipate. Sometimes it takes, Michael Naylor says that those defenses that we have are practically immortal. So,
Thanks,
right?
Sharon.
You bet. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Okay. Lori, go ahead.
Can I just say quickly, is that
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I realise I'm an idealistic person as well, and it does come from a good place also. That yes, I was shocked to see that, and it's a relief though, and I feel really empowered and liberated knowing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Lori. I'm type 9, and it just really struck me. And I've heard this before, read it before, but just really concentrating on this and that what I didn't hear, that your presence matters, which certainly I know that was expressed to me and my but it is that feeling of and I'm having trouble expressing it, but my presence matters, and if I need to be present for the people in my life, and I get so shut down, and so and for multiple reasons, partly being a 9 and partly because I have sleep disorder, my thing is to go to sleep. Just literally just go to sleep. It's easier that way. It's to shut down. It's not to have to look at anything. And but I just went away with my husband for several days and had a wonderful time. And I really tried to be more present and also be willing to make a decision, like where do you want to go have lunch? Those simple things that, and I'm always saying, oh, no, no, wherever you want. And mainly because, it's kind of a catch-22. It's kind of in a way, I don't really care because I don't want to be the one to make the decision because I don't want the responsibility. But also I do have an opinion, you know, but it's like, is it worth, maybe making the wrong decision? And most of the times, no. But I really tried to step up more because I know I'm working on this and realizing that I am so afraid to upset the apple cart, as they say, or just disrupt that peace of mind. But I was doing it, and my husband in turn, I'm sure we don't really talk about this stuff because he's not really interested, but he probably hears me. I mean, we're, talking about things, and but he is being real good about asking me and trying to encourage me to do, and not in any kind of abrupt way or anything, but just trying to be more inclusive. So whether it's just me changing, it's him changing, because it's happened throughout my recovery. There's just that he responds to my changes because they're positive, generally, hopefully. So it's just amazing how this program is helping work that out. And I realize the more I am present in life and being willing to be present with those that I care about, that I'm interacting with, is
awesome.
Is important. So thank you.
That's awesome. You're welcome. And I think, yeah, because 9s avoid conflict, right? And that makes sense. Even imagine possible conflict they will avoid. And I think it's really interesting because this is what happens is we all, as we change, right? Because once again, it's the best of us running the rest of us. That is what happens. Our true self shows up, and right. And so we're not driven by the basic fear. We're not driven by the passion that causes our suffering. We're not driven by that basic desire, right? It's just basically all that ego structure stuff gets dissipated so that we can live our lives. And that's really the goal of what we're doing. Here is what happens as we're working, and everybody knows this, as we're working, we feel uncomfortable because I'm used to a certain pattern, and now suddenly I feel uncomfortable. And we have come to believe that comfort is necessary, and that discomfort is a horrible thing. And what we're learning is no, discomfort is where the growth comes. That's when we grow. I hate it. I wish it wasn't that way. I'm not in control. So what happens is we work through the discomfort. If we can sit in that discomfort, then all kinds of amazing things happen. And you come out the other end, right? More whole, more yourself, more relaxed, more, in the case of an 8, at least, more gentle, more loving, more kind, all of that. And all of that is just, even in the discomfort, is to realize that you are human. And because some of it is we see these things and go, oh my God, have I always been like that? And the answer is, yeah, you have been. You didn't see it, but you have been.
Yeah.
And then to feel 100% compassion for ourselves, because we are wired this way, right? Doesn't mean we have to be this way forever. It just, we don't have to act this way forever, but those feelings will always be there. The 6 will always be afraid. Fear is their deal. They will be that, but it doesn't mean that they can't act on it and act with courage. Because think about it, the Michael Naylor version, his title for the 6 is Courageous Pathfinder. They find a way. Linda T is a courageous pathfinder. She's an amazing woman, and she's a 6. And I never would have pegged her as a 6 because she doesn't seem afraid of anything to me, right? So yeah, so this is all great stuff. Okay, their time is up and they're coming back. I am so excited about this. Hopefully, like next week, 3 people show up. Everybody's like, they're all gone. Like, fuck this, I'm never coming back. I don't think that's true. This is a tough one because we haven't done this before. So at least I'm hoping that. Okay.
Thanks for recovering with us.